Hey guys, welcome to the Stronger Marriage Podcast. Today we are excited you're with us. We are talking about apologies and forgiveness when it comes to marriage. Thanks for joining us today.
Welcome to the Stronger Marriage Podcast with Trey and Lee. On this podcast, you'll hear real topics about real life that cover everything from married sex to raising kids to loving your spouse so much that you're willing to forgive them for occasionally being the most annoying person in the world. Trey and Lee have raised 4 boys, been married over 30 years, and somehow still really like each other. And now, live from the metropolis of Childress, Texas, a place so flat you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. Here are your hosts for the Stronger Marriage Podcast, Trey and Lee Morgan.
Welcome everybody. Glad that you're here. Glad that you've joined us.
Hello, everybody. We are glad to be here with you today.
Yeah, it's a pretty day in Texas. We have had a lot of rain. That makes us happy. We live in an area that generally stays very dry, and everything is green and pretty and
It is, and very humid.
humid. Yeah.
Yes, but it's nice. We'll take all the rain we can get right
That's
now.
right. We were in Ellijay, Georgia this past weekend for a workshop and had a great crowd. If you were there, thank you for coming. We pray that it blessed you. It was kind of the finale of some of the material that we'd been using. We're changing some things up and kind of refreshing some stuff in our marriage workshop material. We're always trying to bring out new material and new information and just a fresh way to present some good, healthy marriage concepts. And so the Wasilla, Alaska folks in June are going to get kind of a new, improved section we're excited about. And then we'll be ready to roll for the getaway weekend in Dallas, which I'm excited about. We've got a lot of people coming in all over the U.S. for that. Come join us for a weekend away in Dallas and just leave those kids at home and refresh and renew your marriage. Good stuff. You can find more information about all that on our website.
Yeah, fun stuff to do in Dallas, so that'll be a great weekend.
Ellijay had a lot of trees and green, didn't they?
They did. It was a pretty place.
Very different than Texas.
We were up in the mountains of Georgia. Yeah.
That's right. We had some very, very kind folks that we got to stay in their cabin, I guess is what you would call that.
Yeah, they called it their haven in the woods.
It was nice. We
yeah,
enjoyed
it.
it. Beautiful patio. If you're in that area and need a place to stay, message us and we'll get you their contact information. But it was very, very nice. We enjoyed it.
Yes.
We're talking today about apologies, forgiveness. Why do you suppose apologies are necessary in marriage? Because I mean, we got a perfect marriage. We don't ever make mistakes,
Exactly.
right?
Right. Yes. No, there are no perfect marriages. There are no perfect people. We're all going to mess up at times and do dumb things that we need to apologize for. And so we want to just give you some step-by-step instructions on how to apologize.
That's it. And how to do good. And really work through some myths as well, because there's a lot of myths, some fake news. We talked about that last week when it comes to apologies and marriage. And I don't know, there's an old quote that says, love means not having to say you're sorry. I don't know who came up with that, but I'm going to guess they're divorced today, because I don't know any marriage or any relationship. There's no such thing as love doesn't mean having to say you're sorry.
Right.
Love is about your spouse's feelings and their needs, and if you need to apologize, by all means apologize.
Yes. Be ready and willing to say, I'm sorry. When you know you messed up, even if you don't know you've messed up, or even if you don't think you messed up and your spouse does.
Yeah.
So that's some things we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, that's true. Should I start off with a quick story about one time where we kind of worked through some of this?
Sure.
Yeah, and it just kind of fits. First story that came to mind was, and this is kind of how marriage is sometimes, and you don't think about it, but it was a Sunday morning. I was getting ready. We were getting ready to go to church, and you walked by a closet where I have a lot of my Sunday type clothes, and kind of pushed it shut and said something with what I thought at the time was a little bit of a tone of, wish you'd learned how to shut your closet door, or something like that. You've left it open 3 weeks. And I don't remember what it was you said, but maybe it was morning time, maybe it was a tone, and maybe it was just me. But it kind of frustrated me, kind of hurt my feelings a little bit. And I thought, well, I'll shut that door. And I found myself, I only get in that closet on Sundays. And I found myself, it was like the next 3 or 4 weeks in a row, anytime I opened that closet door, I remembered that, and it made me mad. And I was sitting here harboring this grudge, and carrying this around. And I finally, one day when I was in there, called you in, and I said, I need to apologize to you. And I was apologizing to you because I had, every time I opened that closet door, I felt anger, I felt frustration, and I thought, this is not fair. I should have said something, or I should have let it go, one of the two. What I shouldn't have done is just let it just stir. And I called you in there, and I remember saying, honey, do you remember when this happened? And every time I've gone to this closet door since then, I've really been angry about the fact that you just kind of, had a short tone a little bit. And your words, and I said, I want to tell you, I forgive you. And I'm not going to hold this against you anymore. I wasn't trying to call you out. I was simply trying to get past this. And you said, of all things, which I thought was amazing, I didn't even realize I'd done that. And here I was for a month carrying this around. As the old phrase goes, I was drinking the poison hoping it would hurt you. Yeah, because I was a little bitter over this whole thing, and you didn't even realize that you had done that. And again, it may have just been me. I may have been a little bit on the sensitive side that morning. But it just gives you an example sometimes of how marriages work. Living with someone, you're going to get frustrated with them, living with someone. And of course, you apologized.
Yes.
You didn't go, well, that's stupid. I didn't remember that. Or you're blowing this all out of proportion. You didn't say any of that. And I wasn't looking for an apology. I was more looking for putting some closure on this, so I didn't get mad at you.
But that's it. You needed to get it off your chest and put closure on it. And in a way, you did need an apology from me, because you just needed to vent and let me know what was bothering you. And so I did need to apologize for that, even though I didn't realize it had caused such a stink for you.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we're saying today. Don't just carry around a grudge. Don't give your spouse the silent treatment. Don't punish them silently for something that they may really not know that they did.
Yeah.
So we say it over and over, probably on every episode at some point, that you've got to communicate with your spouse when there's something going on, because things like that will just fester and fester and fester. And it was a small issue, but it things like that can turn into big issues if you don't address them when they happen.
Yeah. And the worst thing you can do is for your spouse to go, honey, is there something wrong? And you reply with something like, well, if you don't know, I'm not going to tell you.
Exactly.
If they knew,
yes,
they would not have asked. So don't be that person.
Yeah.
You're only making marriage worse by harboring that grudge. It's okay to say, hey, I'm a little angry right now. I'm a little mad. Ask me in a little while, because I'm afraid I'll say something I shouldn't if I talk now. But it doesn't mean you have to give your spouse the silent treatment if they've done something wrong. But learning to apologize and learning to be remorseful and learning to use your words correctly are all healthy in your marriage. And I think one of the things we have said in our workshop in the past, that one of the three keys to having a good marriage is forgiveness, 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 which the point is the better forgiver you are, the better your marriage is going to be. Learn not to make mountains, which is something that I've done, out of a molehill. Don't make a big deal out of stuff that doesn't really matter. And so let's look, unless you've got something else you want to add here about how to apologize, what to say, kind of how you handle that as you go in marriage. When your spouse's feelings have been hurt, maybe you've done something, maybe you didn't even know. You kind of feel like, I didn't know I did that, or maybe they mistook. Is it mistook? Yeah.
Maybe so. We don't say that.
Sometimes we make up new words on this podcast, all right? Sometimes you may be thinking they didn't understand what I was trying to say and they got mad for no reason.
Yes.
But we're going to talk about that.
So we have 7 steps to an apology. You probably never knew there were so many steps to apologizing. You thought, I just say I'm sorry, and they say I forgive you.
It's like, hey, we're going to work through the process.
Right, but yes,
Just some things we want to catch.
Yeah, some important things that you may not have thought of before when it comes to apologizing. So the first thing that you need to do when you apologize is to say what you're sorry for.
So I would say something like, I'm sorry, I forgot to take out the trash.
And I would have said,
tickle in my
"Oh no,
throat."
do you need
Okay.
some water?"
Yeah.
I would have said in the story that you told earlier about the closet door and me using a tone, I am sorry that I used an ugly tone.
Yeah.
You know, I shouldn't have done that.
Or I'm sorry, and you just go, whatever it is. If you're apologizing, you apologize. I'm sorry I was dishonest. I'm sorry I didn't get that done when I told you I would. I'm sorry I didn't get there when I said that I would. But you need to say what you're sorry for. You don't just go, well, sorry.
Yes.
You know.
It's kind of
sorry.
like owning it. You're going to, it's kind of like a confession, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. And that's healthy for your marriage.
It is. It is.
The second thing you want to do is you want to say why it was wrong. Does that make sense? We want to say, I'm sorry I forgot to take out the trash. I was wrong because I told you I would, and I just totally, whatever it is.
Right.
I'm sorry I was wrong because I put my feelings before yours, or I lost my temper. I was wrong. So it's good sometimes to say what you were wrong about. Admit that you made a mistake, that you hurt feelings.
I'm sorry for using that tone. I was wrong to do that because it was unkind.
Yeah, it was.
It was not respectful.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it just goes a long ways to soothing the hurt. If you own up to it and just, explain, don't explain it away. That's one of the things we're going to talk about. I'm probably jumping ahead.
Yeah. Just say, I am so sorry that I did not get that done. It was irresponsible on my part.
That's right.
And so own that. It makes a lot of difference versus just going, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And so that is something that's got to be done.
Yeah. So this is where I was jumping ahead. We tend to want to make excuses or even blame our spouse for why we acted a certain way. But the next one, number 3, is to accept full responsibility.
Yeah.
Accept full responsibility.
Now, this is kind of hard, and we're going to talk about this a little bit because a lot of folks are going to go, but what if I felt like I did that because of, what if that didn't happen? But what I did that because you left the closet door open 3 times in a row. I wouldn't have used that tone. It was the only way to get your attention.
Right.
But that's not the point.
I did that
here.
because I was frustrated.
Exactly.
That's not the point. The point is how you were feeling, and let's resolve those hurt feelings.
Yeah, I accept full responsibility for what I did. I accept responsibility that I did not take out the trash, and what I don't want to do is, and I would have, but you told me 2 other things you needed done. And so you don't use that but. Don't add the but in there, and don't add the excuse, and don't add the blame in there. Just accept responsibility for it. And people with pride, and we all have pride. Sometimes in marriage, we forget we're on the same team. When arguments take place, when somebody's feelings get hurt, we feel like we want to hurt back. That just hurts your marriage. That's not smart. But one of the things we have to remember is we're on the same team, and it's not about your pride. It's not about you being right and your spouse being wrong. It is about your relationship is more valuable than your pride. Your marriage is more valuable than your pride. Don't let your pride hurt your marriage.
Yes.
Because a lot of people they'd be making excuses. Yeah, but.
Yeah.
And yeah, but doesn't.
Trying to explain it away to make yourself feel better is not making your spouse feel better. It's only making you feel better about the situation.
Yeah. And I would love to tell you, honestly, I'll confess, I would love to tell you, honestly, I don't do this. But I will tell you that I am pretty good at going, yeah, but. or trying to explain away why it is that I did what I did. And so accepting full responsibility is something I continue to work on all the time.
So the next thing that we want to do after we've said what we're sorry for, why it was wrong, we've accepted full responsibility, and now we're going to ask how we can make amends. How can I make this better? How can I make this up to you?
Yeah. What can I do to make this better? Mm-hmm. And that's important, because it's like you're saying, I want to do better, and I'm sorry for what I've done, and how can I fix this?
That's right.
And so when you do that, that comes across a little bit more than just saying, yes, I'm sorry, whatever. You know, it's I realize something happened that has hurt your feelings, or I've hurt you, and so I want to make this better. How can I make this better?
That's right. And we understand, I mean, we're kind of talking about small things that you might need to apologize for in marriage. And we realize that sometimes you make huge, colossal mistakes in marriage. And if you ask your spouse, you know, how can I make this better? How can I make this up to you? They may say, there's nothing you can do to make this better. You know, it's done, and there's nothing you can do now to fix this. You just have to accept that. I mean, you've put it out there that you're willing to make it better, but you just have to accept that sometimes we mess up so big that it's going to just take time. Time is what's going to make it better.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, I think, in a minute. But yeah, there are some things that take place in marriage when trust is broken, when there has been some kind of emotional, physical affair, where you may say, how can I make this better? And they may just go, you can't. Mm-hmm. And all you can do is do it a day at a time at trying to prove your faithfulness.
Yes.
Even in the small things. It is one of those things to where it is like even taking out the trash. That's this silly illustration that I've been using. But how can I'm going to prove faithful by doing my best to, when I tell you I'm going to take out that trash, I'm going to do it. You know.
And that leads us into the next step. Really, number 5 is commit to not doing it again. You make that commitment to yourself and to your spouse that moving forward, I'm going to try really hard to always take out the trash when you ask me to, or when I know I should, or I'm going to try really hard to not ever do that big thing, you know, whatever it is that broke trust. You know, and a lot of people will say, I promise I will never do that again, or I promise I will. I kind of have an issue with throwing the word promise around, because to me, a promise is a big deal. And I think if it's something that you really struggle with and you know that you do, then it's probably better to say,
not make a promise.
To say, I really am fully going to try really hard. But you even told me, you know, sometimes I just ask you to do things that are not important to you, like hang up the dish towel after you wipe your hands instead of throwing it back on the countertop.
I wonder if other husbands do that.
I might just hang it up. And I've asked you to do that, and you've told me I'm gonna try to do that, but you might have to remind me again. So don't promise me that you're gonna do it, knowing full well I'm probably gonna struggle to do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna forget. You're gonna have to remind me, and I'll have to get into a habit of doing that.
So just my point is, don't throw promises around. Promises are a big deal, and don't throw them around or take them lightly.
Prove to be faithful on this point. You want to commit to not doing that again. Or especially if it's a big colossal mistake, but even in the small stuff, be faithful in the small stuff, and that means you are going to work to not use that tone, to not hold a grudge, to whatever it is. You're gonna work hard to move past that. But you also may have to tell your spouse if it's something small and it's something new. Hey, you may have to remind me of that again, and I'm sorry I did not get that done, but you're going to have to remind me of that again, because it may take a little while for me to get into this new habit of what I'm trying to do.
That's right. And even like I said, with me using a tone, that wouldn't be something I would promise to never do again, because I know I struggle with that. So yeah. But you just commit to trying really hard and knowing that is something that you have to work on.
That is exactly
yes. So the next step is, we talked about this at length this morning.
We did. This is going to be a good point, I think.
To ask for forgiveness. Will you accept my apology? Now, we feel like, forgiveness is just a key in marriage. It's the cornerstone of marriage, because we all mess up. We're all going to need forgiveness, and so we're going to be quick to forgive. And we just feel like, I would have forgiven you for not taking out the trash before you ever asked me to. Or even if you did apologize for it, I wouldn't feel like you would need to ask for forgiveness.
Right.
For forgetting to take out the trash. Right. So this is probably more for those big colossal mistakes that you might make in marriage, where you need to ask your spouse for forgiveness.
Where something has happened and it has
where
really
you have broken trust.
Yes. Impacted your marriage, and you need to say, I am so sorry. Will you forgive me? Will you accept my apology? Now, the reason we bring this up is I said I felt this was a little odd, because I've never one time felt like I needed to say, will you accept my apology? Never before have I thought to myself, am I going to forgive Lee for using that tone? No, you were forgiven. And so it seemed a little odd. Forgiveness just ought to be flowing in your marriage. But when something huge, like a break in trust or something like that takes place, it should require please forgive me. Will you accept my apology? And one of the things that I think you have to understand is that sometimes you can give forgiveness quickly, but trust may come, and even subsiding of anger may take a while. And so let's just say that there has been a huge dishonesty, a huge mistrust, a breaking in trust with an emotional affair or a physical affair that has taken place, and you can forgive, but you may need to tell your spouse, I forgive you, but it is going to take me a while to get past this. It is going to take me a long time to rebuild trust, and because my trust is not there does not mean I have not forgiven you. Trust will come slowly. Forgiveness can come quickly. And also frustration and anger. So I may be frustrated about this for a while, and yet, forgiveness is not just a switch that fixes everything. You don't just come in and flip the switch and go, I'm sorry, do you forgive me? Yes, I do. And everything is fine back like it was. When there is a huge mistake, it is going to require some time, a process, in order for this to take place, but it can happen as long as you're willing to work on that. We need to learn to be good forgivers, even if our spouse doesn't ask. They may not know they hurt our feelings, even before they ask. And it should be a regular in your marriage that if your spouse says, will you accept my apology? Of course you should forgive, even no matter what, because God has forgiven us.
Yes. And forgiveness may not come as easily for some people, and you may have to say, I want to forgive you, but I'm going to have to work through some things. It's kind of like throwing those promises around. Sometimes we're too free to do that, but ultimately the goal is forgiveness, because if you don't forgive and you carry a grudge and a hurt, then you're hurting yourself more than you're hurting the other person.
It's true.
Really. That unforgiveness will just eat at you.
And can I talk for a second to the innocent party? Since we're talking for a second and we've kind of got off on this broken trust issue, would love to talk to the innocent party for a second and just say forgiveness is possible. Hang in there and work hard to forgive. And try to remind yourself that you can still be hurt, you can still be frustrated, you can still rebuild trust and still forgive. Because you think about it, and we do say this a lot, but we want God to forgive us very easily and very quickly. We somehow or another, we just think, God is so willing to forgive, and He is. And yet he requires of us that we forgive as easily as he does.
Mm-hmm.
And if we, there's a story in the Bible about a guy who is forgiven of this huge amount of debt, and he goes out and he chokes a friend of his over like a little $5 debt.
Mm-hmm.
And the original guy pulls the guy back in that choked him and said, hey, I forgive you of $1 million debt, and you're going to go choke your friend over a $5 bet. And he dumps all that debt back on him and said, I'm gonna give you all this debt back. Mm-hmm. And so it's just a reminder that God doesn't recommend we forgive. God actually says, if you want me to forgive you, you have to forgive. And
exactly.
that is such a hard concept. And I know there are some people that have been so hurt, and we don't make light of that. We just want you to understand that forgiveness from God is so important, and it just goes hand in hand with forgiveness of other people. Be cautious about holding those grudges.
Yes.
Sorry, we did not mean to preach this morning.
I think, yes, but I think that was necessary to say that for sure. If we want forgiveness, we've got to give forgiveness. And we forgive. Why forgive? Because sometimes you will need to be forgiven. And we said that earlier. We're all going to mess up. And we're going to be quick to forgive our spouse because at some point it's going to be us that's, having to apologize for something, and that's going to need that forgiveness.
Yeah.
So,
you might even tell them, thanks for bringing it to your attention. Thanks for letting me know that I had a tone and I didn't realize it. Thanks for letting me know that I told you I'd do something and somehow or another I didn't get it done. And so maybe one of the things you can do to close all that out is just kind of say, thanks for letting me know. Thank you for not harboring a grudge against me, and I will do better on this. And that's because your marriage is more important than your pride. Mm-hmm. So here's a few quick little points on
these are
how
things, yes,
not to do on
these
apologies.
These are not apologies.
Yeah. Don't say you're sorry just for saying
right.
sake.
Just to get out of trouble.
Yeah, don't say you're sorry just to get out of trouble. Don't do that, okay? That doesn't make anything better. Mm-hmm. Be remorseful.
Don't say, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. That's not an apology.
It is not. And basically you're telling your spouse you're an
your
idiot.
Feelings are wrong.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't matter how your spouse feels. If they feel that way, whether you feel like you did anything or not, your marriage is more important than your pride. Now, this one's even tough. I'm sorry you misinterpreted what I said. Basically, you're saying, again, you're wrong. Mm-hmm. Just apologize for what happened.
Yeah. Don't say you must have misunderstood what I meant. So there again, that's kind of another, you're just, that's why communication is so important. You can't say things like that if you're making sure you're on the same page. If you repeat back, did I hear you just say such and such?
Yeah. The best thing to do is communicate, and we say that. If somebody this morning asked on Instagram a comment, they said we just kind of had this phrase out there, and a guy said, "How do I tell my wife this without saying it?" And my comment was, just say it.
Sometimes you have to
You just have to say it. Beating around the bush and dropping hints is going to frustrate everybody. Mm-hmm. Just say it. It is the best thing you can do.
Don't say, I'm sorry, but... Yeah. And we talked about that earlier. No excuses, no explaining it away.
Here's a big one. All right. This is big. Listen to me, people.
Oh, yeah.
Do not say, I am sorry, but do you remember that one time when you... Mm-hmm. Don't bring up past stuff. Hey, if you've forgiven your spouse of that, don't drag back the past into the present. You're poisoning your whole relationship. Can you imagine God doing that to you and you just saying, Lord, I had a hard day yesterday. I probably said some things I shouldn't. And the Lord all of a sudden goes, I'll tell you about all the times that you said things you shouldn't, things that you hope that God forgives you. Well, God forgives you when you say those things. He doesn't drag them back up and stick them under your nose. So don't do that to your spouse. Don't get historical every time you're in an argument and say, well, what about the time when you did this? That just makes things worse.
Mm-hmm. It does. Also saying it was your fault that I did blah, blah, blah. Yeah, like we said, no excuses, no explaining it away. And then once the apology is made, don't keep on sulking and giving the silent treatment and silently punishing your spouse. They've apologized. Hopefully it was heartfelt. If you follow these steps, then it was a heartfelt apology, and you need to forgive and move on and be better.
Yeah, that is exactly right. Now, sometimes we think because we've apologized that we're weak for doing that, and that's not true. Being wrong, feeling embarrassed, admitting you were wrong, and apologizing doesn't make you weak. It makes you mature. It values your marriage. Mm-hmm. So don't feel like, man, I'm just so weak for having to apologize. That's such a horrible concept. Saying you're sorry simply means you're mature enough to admit your own mistakes, to apologize for them wholeheartedly, and to commit to not making those same mistakes again. You got this, and you can do this. And that is so important that we learn how to do that we become people who are good about apologizing.
That's right. And realize if it was a big thing, your spouse might not be ready to forgive you right away. Be patient, because depending on the situation and the severity of your wrongdoings, your spouse might still be disappointed and frustrated and angry, and it might take some time. So just rebuild that trust. We did an episode on rebuilding trust.
It's
didn't we?
one of
It's been a while.
It may be our most popular episode.
If this is striking a nerve, there's a big issue that y'all are having to work through, you might need to look up that episode on rebuilding trust.
Yeah, How to Rebuild Trust is the name of the episode, the podcast episode. And if you can't find it, if you'll email us or message us, we will send you the link and you can listen to it, because there are some great rules on how to rebuild trust.
Right. So be good apologizers and be good forgivers.
We're so glad y'all joined us today. Thank y'all and I was so worried because we didn't have a whole lot of notes, and I thought this is going to be the world's shortest podcast.
And we filled 30 whole minutes.
Yeah, we try to stay 20, 25, but went a little long. So thank you guys for being patient with us and tuning in every week to listen.
That's right. We'll see you next week.
See ya. Y'all have a great week.